We're in the Museum of Art in the city of Atami in Japan, looking at one of this nation's national treasures, Ogata Kōrin's Red and White Plum Blossoms. It's a Japanese screen, pair of two hinged panels.
And not only are we looking at a national treasure, but also perhaps the great culmination of the career of one of the most famous Japanese artists, Ogata Kōrin. This is painted late in his career. What we see are two plum trees. The one on the left has white flowers, and the one on the right has red flowers, and in the middle, a stream.
What makes this painting so extraordinary is the thin line between naturalism, his understanding of the anatomy of the plum tree, and of the water rushing down the stream, and a high degree of abstraction.
Japanese gardens are always artifice. They're always aestheticized. The trees are carefully pruned, the bodies of water carefully guided to produce the most heightened aesthetic effects.
Let's look closely at the white plum on the left. We have this broad trunk that floats in space. The ground plane is simply gold. There is no cross-hatching, there is no shadowing, there is no outline. He is creating a sense of volume and mass simply through color and placement.
We have this gold background where we would expect to see other green growth, clouds, sky, and instead we have this flat gold background that to me enhances the sense of preciousness of nature. These gnarled branches that have been guided in their growth through careful pruning to be expressive and to follow the natural growth of the tree, but at the same time, these vertical shoots that feel new as they emerge from the branches.
When I first looked at this painting, I did not associate the old trunk of the plum with the branch that enters from the top left. Instead, it seemed to me at first that that was a tree that was growing out of the ground. And it was only as I began to step back and see the panels as a whole that I realized that that branch was actually part of that larger tree.
This is, I think, part of the pictorial strategy to almost zoom in, to abbreviate, to heighten what we're looking at. And so we only see parts of forms, but we're also very close to them.
This artist was not simply a painter, but he also worked in urushi lacquer, in textiles, in many media.
Well, his father ran a very high-level establishment that provided textiles to the elite. But toward the middle of his life, he also found himself in a position where he had to make a living, and he started to paint.
The composition, at first glance, seems so simple. A stream in the center with a tree on either side. And yet there's nothing symmetrical about this.
Well, and we also have this contrast between movement and stillness. The stream is moving around rocks and eddies, but then this stillness of the trees and the branches. So I read this almost as three independent forms. And it reminds me of how we see so often images of three in the Buddhist tradition of Japanese art, where we see the Buddha with a bodhisattva on either side of him.
The plum tree, and the plum blossom specifically, is an ancient subject in Japan and in China. It speaks to ephemerality. That is, that beauty is only there for a moment, and that we have to wait for the cycle of the year for that to come again.
The plum blossom refers to winter and the very beginnings of spring. So this transitional moment between the seasons, which are a kind of heightened moment where one is more aware of change.
And that must have been especially heightened because this was made so late in the artist's life.
If we look closely, we can see that he used a technique where he added more paint on top of the pools of paint that were not quite dry. And you can see the edges formed by that technique, creating a sense of the moss and the growth on the trees and the bark of the trees.
And I especially love the green-blue lichen, which he produced using malachite.
Art historians think about this as the height or the great masterpiece of the Rinpa school. And if we think about that word, Rinpa, Rin, Ogata Kōrin, and Pa is school. So this is the school of Ogata Kōrin. It's not a real school. It's a group of artists painting in a particular style. And although we think about Ogata Kōrin as the quintessential artist of that school, he's also very much looking back to other important Japanese artists from 50 or 100 years earlier, most notably Sotatsu.
And to try to characterize the Rinpa school is not easy, but very often the art is lush, colorful. There can be a substantial amount of gold, and there's often a high degree of abstraction.
What artists of the Rinpa school often do is take one element and really focus our attention on it, enlarge it. And so instead of having a tree and a stream in space, in a garden, we're just face to face with these natural elements. And in fact, there is a painting that Kōrin did that's a copy of a painting by Sotatsu, where we see a very similar tree to the one we see here on the right, as though Kōrin has taken that tree and enlarged it and made it the focus of this very decorative and stylized image.
Looking at this painting, it's impossible not to think about Gustav Klimt, of the use of gold, of pattern, of the formality, of the rejection of clear space, of the interest in abstraction and geometry.
So much of the Art Nouveau movement, the secession movements at the end of the 19th and early 20th century, certainly looking to Japan, something that began in 1852 when Japan opened up to the West.
Like so many light-sensitive works of art in Japanese museums and monasteries, these panels are only brought out generally once a year in late winter when the plum trees bloom. And so we're so lucky to be here in Atami to see this painting now.